Florida Governor Ron DeSantis does not support a two-state solution in Israel and Palestine. Let's tune into last night's debate to hear more.
So we got to support Israel in word and in deed, in public and in private. And they need to be able to finish the job. Joe Biden is kneecapping them. He'll say one thing, then he goes, and his base doesn't like Israel, so he's got to do all these other things. This is a time to recognize that they suffered the most deaths of Jews, murder of Jews, since the Holocaust. Hamas wants a second Holocaust. They want to annihilate the state of Israel. So I think to be a good ally, you back them in the decisions that they're making with respect to Gaza. Look, there's a lot of pluses and minuses with how you're doing this. But for us to be sitting in Washington, second-guessing them, I don't think that's the right way. We also have a disagreement, Governor Haley and I. When she was at the UN, she supported the idea of a two-state solution between Israel and the Palestinian Arabs. The problem with that is the Palestinian Arabs don't recognize Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. So doing a two-state solution doesn't create something that's going to lead to a lasting peace. It creates a stepping stone for Israel's destruction. So under no circumstances, as president, am I going to pressure Israel to risk their security to do a so-called two-state solution. She was wrong when she embraced that, and we're right to say we trust Israel to make these decisions. They're a good ally of ours. We should trust their judgment on these sensitive issues.
Governor DeSantis.
Meanwhile, the Biden administration is still squirming, trying to explain why Biden was in the dark for days over Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's hospitalization. Let's watch.
Okay, thank you for all the detail on that. But more broadly, why should we believe anything that this administration tells us about anything ever again?
I think we all recognize, and I think the Pentagon has been very, very honest with themselves about the challenge to credibility by what has transpired here and by how hard it was for them to be fully transparent with the American people. I think we all recognize that. And wait, now just give me a second now. I know you got another one coming here, but we all recognize that this didn't unfold the way it should have on so many levels, not just the notification process up the chain of command, but the transparency issues. We all recognize that. And I think we all want to make sure we learn from that. It's up to you and your colleagues, and it's up to the American people to determine, how much they're going to ascribe what happened here to our credibility on every single issue. But in every way, Secretary Austin has been an exceptional defense secretary, and he still has the full faith and confidence of the commander-in-chief. He has led the department at an incredibly dangerous time for our national security interests and those of our allies and partners.
But if the administration is going to go to such great lengths to keep secrets about the defense secretary's health, how can anybody be certain that the administration would not go to the same lengths to keep secret problems with President Biden's health in the future?
If you could logically argue, and you can't, but if you could logically argue that
He's 81 years old.
Wait a second. Just give me a second here, bub. I'll get there. If the administration made some sort of Machiavellian effort across the board to keep this from getting public, then I think your question has merit. And certainly is a fair one. I don't think it's a fair one because that's not what happened here, Peter. What happened here is the Secretary of Defense, for whatever reason, I can't answer the question why, that information wasn't shared. It wasn't shared widely in the department, and it certainly wasn't shared with the interagency. It's not good. It's certainly not good, which is why, again, we want to learn from this. We want to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
First of all, Ron DeSantis' framing of the two-state solution is completely historically ignorant. The enemy of the two-state solution has always been Israel's right-wing government and Benjamin Netanyahu specifically. We've covered extensively on the show the extent to which he and Israel funded Hamas as a more extremist alternative to the PLO, which was in good faith negotiating toward a two-state solution. The assassination of that more moderate leader was attributed. The family members attributed the assassination to Benjamin Netanyahu. Whether or not that is true, they certainly saw his calls for his assassination as part and parcel of an effort to thwart any real peace negotiation toward a two-state solution in the Oslo Accords. The contemporary problem with the two-state solution being enacted and why so many people, especially on the left, have given up up on it is because of the numerous illegal settlements in the West Bank that Israel persists in fostering in contravention of international law, recruiting settlers to occupy that land, including tens of thousands of Americans who have settled in the West Bank illegally and are armed and protected by the Israeli government, and where, by the way, there have been hundreds of Palestinians killed despite there being no Hamas in the West Bank. And moreover, he ignores the extent to which a two-state solution is not some weird pinko policy coming out of Nikki Haley. Quite the opposite. It was literally the stated policy objective of Donald Trump. And so then you have to then ask the question, if he does not support a two-state solution, what does he support? A one-state solution that either furthers the multi-decade occupation, illegal occupation of the Palestinian people? Or does he support, and this is a question he's sort of dodged there that we saw, does he support the mass deportation and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians to countries like Congo, who apparently Israel has been in negotiations with to try to get them to accept refugees? It's disgusting to recognize that the reason that Israel needed to be founded in the first place was the pervasive anti-Semitism of Europeans and Americans, who not only the Europeans in Europe who were Nazis and conducted the genocide against Jewish people in World War II, but the populations around the world in the West who declined to accept Jewish immigrants after the war because of their own deep-seated anti-Semitism and instead set up the colonial project in Israel. And now we're dealing with that exact same issue today, where the displaced people from that state founded in 1948 are now going to be shipped to a different part of the world, so we can just keep playing this game of shifting responsibility over and over and over again instead of dealing with the fundamental problem of whether or not we can have a one state with equal rights as opposed to an ethno-nationalist state that is Jewish supremacist in nature.
That was a lot. What I found interesting in DeSantis' comments is that I think he's not quite reading the room on the non-interventionist right, which has some of the support among the non-interventionist right. They've split, I think, who they care about, and there was some interest in DeSantis although I don't think being very deeply principled on from a non-interventionist standpoint on foreign policy issues, did start saying some of the right things on Ukraine and has continued to say some of the right things on the Ukraine, again, from the non-interventionist standpoint. He's saying that we need to back Israel and we can't put any conditions on Israel. And Biden has been quite supportive of Israel and now and then perhaps discouraging them from taking some courses of actions, but overall very supportive. And again, we give them aid. We've given them, more money than any other country for 50 years. I don't think it's a very conservative or Republican or right-wing idea that we must fund another country's defense but can ask no questions about and have no say over how that money is spent. I frankly just don't think there's anything conservative about having that view.
I agree.
So it is weird to adopt that position. In terms of the two-state solution, I support a two-state solution. I would like there to be a two-state solution.
Yes,
I think it's kind of a non-starter at this point because it's not what the people involved in the combat.
Well, it's what Israel does not support a two-state solution. Netanyahu does not support a two-state solution.
They support war with each other, which is what they're getting.
Well, no, the Palestinians support being free from occupation, as is the right under international law. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about with Ron DeSantis was that he says Joe Biden has to appease his base by going against Israel. One, as you pointed out, obviously he's not going against Israel. He does occasionally pretend like he is asking for some moderation out of Benjamin Netanyahu to perhaps appease his base, but it's not his base. 57% of independents and 56% of Republicans support a ceasefire. This is not a partisan issue. And I think Ron DeSantis is going to find himself on the wrong side of this as he's saying, yes, we should continue to give billions of dollars to this country that majorities of Americans think is acting with impunity and committing human rights violations, and also with what return, for what purpose, and what's the end? To do an ethnic cleansing, to have to be fighting a war in the Congo
the end is to eliminate
30
Hamas.
Years from now?
I mean, again, whether you support a ceasefire can be a little ambiguous. I support a ceasefire. Israel wants a ceasefire after Hamas is eliminated. I mean, how can there be a ceasefire when there remains a terrorist government on your borders that has, sworn to destroy you? But
Right. And I could say, I am going to stop punching you in the face as soon as you stop breathing, but that would just be me giving myself permission to murder you, because obviously you're not going to stop breathing, and if you do stop breathing, you're already dead.
Right, well,
that's the scenario that the Palestinians are in. And they have a right to resist under international law an ongoing occupation that Israel has been enacting for the last 75 years.
They have a right, they're resisting, and now they're being massacred because of it. I would like
with
both
American
sides
dollars
to stop.
That Ron DeSantis supports continuing to send with no limitations, in contravention of American law, the Leahy law, which already requires that the weapons that we send not be used for humanitarian abuses.
I wouldn't send the aid regardless of it. We just shouldn't do it because it's our money and they can pay for it themselves. But there we have it. You can decide for yourself. More Rising right after this.